This week will mark the 65th anniversary of Japan's invasion of China. And with the dispute over the Diaoyu Islands in the East China Sea boiling over in the region, that anniversary has special meaning for those outraged by not only Japan's occupation of the archipelago, but also the activities of a Japanese right-wing group which erected a war shrine there. Massive protests have broken out here in Hong Kong. Yesterday, more than 12,000 demonstrators made their feelings known over the sovereignty issue, over the islands which China, Taiwan, and Japan are claimants to. Inside Story examines the events that have led up to the outbreak of pan-Chinese nationalism in the region. And we report on why some believe the Chinese and Japanese governments aren't doing enough to resolve the issue.
The Japanese government should take effective measures to contain this countercurrent.
The Japanese government is not involved in the activities, and the Japanese government doesn't support the activities.
The United States does have a position. And our position is that we do not support any individual country's claim to these islands.
China has claimed these 8 uninhabited islands in the East Sea virtually her own since 1534. But today, ownership is fanning old and new fears. What's at stake are the Diaoyus, known to Japan as the Senkakus, when they, along with Taiwan and other territories, became part of the Imperial Army's war booty after the Sino-Japanese conflict in 1895. Now a new battle has erupted over who has sovereignty over the Diaoyus, which are located about 190 miles from Japan's Okinawa Island and about 125 miles from Taiwan. The dispute is being underlined by the acts of the Japanese right-wing group, the Japan Youth Federation. It not only erected a lighthouse in July, but it also built a war memorial there. The Federation returned to the Diaoyus last week to repair the beacon, which was damaged during a typhoon. It's also attempted to straighten out any misunderstandings.
あの灯台はあくまでも日本の固有の領土である尖閣に建てた日本のためのみならず台湾そしてまた中国の船舶そしてまた台湾の漁民のために一番利用されてるんじゃないかと私は信じています。ですから壊すということがあるならばそれはテロだと私ははっきりと言います。
The building of the lighthouse, for whatever reason, has ignited a wave of angry opposition. What seems to be making it worse is the Japanese government's virtual support of the right-wingers, with its deployment of the Coast Guard to protect the islands and the Federation's activities, despite its official line.
The Japanese government is not involved in the activities, and the Japanese government doesn't support the activities. We sincerely hope that both the Japanese and the Chinese people deal with the Senkaku Island issues calmly.
I think that from the Japanese perspective, it's very difficult for the Japanese government right now to, if you will, appear to be conciliatory or bold in a diplomatic sense because the domestic political politics in Japan right now are so fragile. The Hashimoto government is, of course, facing an election in the not too distant future, and to appear right now to be overly conciliatory from the Japanese point of view on this particular issue might have domestic political ramifications.
In Hong Kong, more than 10,000 demonstrators showed their anger yesterday in what's so far been Hong Kong's largest rally ever against Japanese occupation of the archipelago. which may bestow title to more than 30,000 kilometers worth of potential oil reserves.
Well, I'm not quite sure what people mean by Japanese militarism. If they mean a return to the 1930s, I think that's very exaggerated. If the United States were to leave Japan, if the security relationship between Japan and the United States were to be damaged and weakened, then you might find that the Japanese would then find that the whole security situation has to be reassessed.
Late last month, activists gave the visiting Japanese foreign minister a piece of their mind. Chinese nationalism has reached fever pitch in Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Macau, ironically linking liberals to a familiar but sensitive issue, that of Chinese sovereignty. In an unprecedented move, the New China News Agency received Democratic Party legislators and their petition for more action on China's part.
We asked the Chinese government to have the diplomatic protest, to protest against the Japanese occupation of Dewey Island, and also to urge the Japanese government to have the open apologies to this occupation. And we also asked the Chinese government to table a resolution in the Security Council in the United Nations to protest against the Japanese occupation.
China's ambassador to Tokyo delivered last week a formal protest to the Japanese government, while Vice Premier Li Lanqing canceled his visit to Japan, which had been scheduled for next month.
The Chinese side wants hereby to express its indignation at this move, and it has already made representations again with the Japanese government about it and lodged a strong protest.
Activists, and especially those who suffered at the hands of the Japanese during the Second World War, meanwhile, are intent on keeping up the heat on Tokyo over a dispute that's all too familiar, along with the anger.
Although people in Hong Kong have a tradition almost now of expressing themselves about the Diaoyu Islands, the timing of it, of course, has been in some ways beneficial because it shows to the Chinese authorities that people here have a sense of patriotism.
Demonstrations over Japan's control over the Diaoyus initially surfaced more than 25 years ago in the territory, when the United States, after its post-war occupation of Japan, decided to cede Okinawa and territories that included the Diaoyus back to Tokyo. While attitudes and passions about Japan's wartime aggression may not have changed, the times have, with the island nation today playing a big part in the economies of Asia.
I think it's important not to lose sight of the big picture. You know, we have very important ties with the People's Republic of China, with ties which are important to the region and to the whole world.
I think the Chinese government has been quite soft in dealing with the Dewey Island all over the years. And simply because maybe the Chinese government want to develop the economic development in China, and they need so many economic interests from Japan.
Activists in Hong Kong, though, aren't taking any prisoners. The dispute has given birth to new anti-Japan groups in the territory. The Liberal Association for Democracy and People's Livelihood traveled to Beijing last week to deliver a 50-meter-long petition to the Chinese Foreign Ministry. What's also been publicized: mass rallies, more petitions, and symbolic boycotts of Japanese goods. Activists will also take to the sea with a planned boat trip next month to the disputed islands, where they hope to personally dismantle what is considered a beacon of Japanese aggression.